Hello, and welcome to our first episode of Real Life and Real Love. I am Sarah Michelle, and this is Hayley. We're going to take just a moment as we get started here to let everyone know a little bit about us. We each run our own separate businesses, and we're just coming here to have conversations around love and life, dating, and relationships. So actually with that, Hayley, when you get a chance to talk about your business, maybe just share a little bit about yourself as well.
Yeah.
And I'll get started. So as I said, I am Sarah Michelle, and I am a coach and owner of Happiness and Heals. So I coach around sex, love, and intimacy. And I have two children myself. I was married for 10 years and have been divorced for 2.5, almost 3 years. And I have a 9-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. And so that's kind of where my experience is coming from in the background, like my life experience is coming from having that long-term relationship. We were married for 10 years, together for 14, and then having children. And so obviously knowing the difference between dating before that marriage and then, which wasn't quite the same at all because I was definitely in college, and dating now in my 30s and with children, which is a big difference.
Yes.
How about you, Hayley?
I don't even know where to start. So I'm a single mom. I have a 12-year-old daughter. I am from New Zealand and I live in Australia. I have been in 2 long-term relationships. Both were actually quite abusive. So I've worked through a lot of trauma and triggers and stuff from childhood. And I did, because I wanted to overcome it. I wanted to be successful. I just did what I do, and I just dived deep into books, webinars, courses, and as much as I possibly could to like step forward and understand things, which is part of how you and I talk a lot, because we find that information and we see what's happening in real life versus sometimes what somebody's teaching, and we just go, oh, that's not ideal, or what somebody's teaching and how this could be implemented better, like, hey, oh my god, I've got this idea, or I just saw this thing. And that's what you do with your friends. You're like, I'm going through this, or this is a secret, we should share this, hey, should we tell other people?
Yeah, we have spent years doing that with each other. So Hayley and I have known each other for about 6 years. We met when we went through a coaching academy together in 2016. Yeah, and we've been friends ever since. So she knew me when I was married. She knew me through the divorce. She's known me in my dating life.
Yeah.
All of it. Man, my kids were so young when we met, just running around and screaming in the house. So how about your business?
So I have a personal styling business that I do basically one-on-ones, and I'm creating digital products because I think it's really important that stuff's at an affordable price point where you can do it in your own time. So I think there's like those 2 different ways, and women absorb information different. So sometimes we can sit and have a conversation, and then other times we just want to go ahead and do it when we're like lying in bed or something like that. So I help women energetically and with their confidence and understanding. Basically, style is a communication. It's a tool, and it's something that it's illegal to not wear clothes, and we might as well have as much fun as possible. And when you wear a good outfit, your day is on fire, and you can actually do that every single day. And you can use your clothes to your advantage, not as into like get what I want, like not coming from that vindictive place, but coming from enjoying my life and what you bring to the table. And we do it every day, so let's do a good job of it. And so I help women step into their power, understanding color, fit, texture, proportion, and what works with their body. And that's the thing that I do different. I'm not about seasonal trends. I'm not about teaching you like, the 5 fall must-haves or anything like that. Like, we could do that, but what actually I think is really important for the average person, which is you and me, which is basically everybody, it's not about, label or price point or what's in season. It's about working with the body that we have and using it to our advantage, which is the ultimate goal of happiness, using it in a way that we just live here and love it. And clothes should do that. You shouldn't ever look in the mirror and feel bad or loathe yourself. You shouldn't ever open your wardrobe or wither at the thought of opening your wardrobe going, I have no idea what to wear today, and now I need to leave the house. And we have the power of wearing, important clothes at important places. So we don't wear a potato sack in the boardroom. We don't, wear our lingerie to the grocery shop. There's like specific reasons why you wear things. And I like to help kind of use that and then also unravel that, which is, our conversations. We unravel what's this definition, or what is the thing, or I learned this from this place. Like, what does that mean? And I think it's really important we do that. We do that with, I think this is why we get along so well. We do this with, dating, sex, love, and intimacy, and real life, and being a mom, and being a woman, and all the elements that go into the stuff that's like pivotal in who we are and our happiness.
Yeah. I remember the first time that I worked with you was, I'm pretty sure it was 2017. I was still home with the kids. And we went through my closet. So even though she's in Australia and I'm up here in the United States, we met through Zoom, and you helped me go through my closet, and I had like this mom wardrobe that was completely unfulfilling. I still had stuff I had worn just for convenience while breastfeeding, or stuff that I wore just because I was going into the office, which I wasn't going into anymore, and stuff like that. And the biggest thing that came out of that whole thing was I kept telling you how much I hated bras. And like, I couldn't wear this shirt because my strap would show here, and I couldn't wear this and that. And they're like, stop wearing a bra. And I was like, what? And I did. And it didn't make my husband at the time super happy that I was running around without a bra. I remember having to work through that. But that's kind of the fun thing I think about the way that you work through style is it's totally a personal development thing. It's not just, hey, I'm a classic sort of person, so please go find me 5 outfits that'll match that I like. It's like, it's about a transformation and walking through it. And then another thing I did after that was I started stepping into clothing that was already in my closet.
Yeah.
I was just afraid to wear.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out how to wear it. I was afraid to wear it or whatever. And
it was hiding in the corner. I remember gym shorts hanging at the front of that wardrobe walk in, and I was like,
they weren't my gym shorts. They were my husband's.
Like, how do I say this? What is going on?
Why are there so many gym shorts? Oh my God, I remember that. He had a gym short addiction, and so I ended up buying 40 pant hangers. And I was just like, you can buy whatever gym shorts you want, but there's not going to be more than 40, okay? So like every time you bring a new one home, just find one to give up. I don't care. And that's how we kept track of that. But as you were helping style me, one of the things I stepped into was this see-through shirt that you're like, just wear a black bra under it. And I was in total, like, whatever happened after I had my kids, I just went into mom mode, like what I thought a mom should be. And I started dressing conservatively, and I started being like more quiet. Like, I don't know. I just started being not me, I guess. And I remember you being like, I think, what was I, like 27 at the time or something? 28. I was young.
You're still young.
And I was dressing like I was in my 40s. And you're like,
which is a
totally wear this shirt.
There's a lot of emotional content. There's a lot of energetic things that happen. There's a lot of society pressures. There's a lot of expectations, which is like my thing, where it's like, it's seeing through the chaos, and it's seeing through like, what is it that you really want? You want happiness. You want to feel good. So what is your personal definition of that? And what really works for you? What's your budget? What have you got to work with? And understanding like appreciation and the energetic properties for your body and your assumptions. We all did that. I even did that. I started covering up. I felt so down about my body after having my daughter, and my ex, her father, was really nasty about my body, through pregnancy and post giving birth, and that takes a toll on us. So we get like the outside influence. I literally had somebody 3 months after I had my daughter. I went out for my friend's birthday and I came back from the bar and he was like, I thought you just had a baby. And I was like, yeah, I did. She's 3 months old. And he was like, oh, but you don't look like it. And I was like, so what should I look like? Like, there's an assumption so many people make. And I wasn't wearing anything fancy. It was a beautiful cobalt blue dress. Like, I remember everything. Like, and everybody at the table couldn't believe it. And I was like, well, if I wanted to not look after my body, then that's what I would want to do. But my goal was to get back into my clothes after pregnancy, no matter what my eggs said. And that was my goal. So that's what I went and did. And it was really fascinating, seeing the outside world and what they say to you. And we forget that triggers us. Like, I remember the exact conversation. I remember the bar. I remember the seat. I remember the person. Like, that kind of vivid memory, like, messes with us. And I'm not emotionally triggered. I was just like, this is amusing. I need to tell some other people about this. But the same thing happens for so many people. It's rare that I meet somebody who is unaffected, like, by society expectations and our expectations for who we are physically as a woman, because there is the thing that you change in value when you have a baby. Your body changes in value. And what we talk about a lot is the value on your body is something that we place on ourselves, but we're taught to seek external validation on what is my value, like waiting for somebody else to like give us that. Whereas, stepping back into our power and realizing it's actually on me. I actually picked that. When you see a woman walking down the street and she's wearing such a fine outfit that you were just wanting to be like, yes, it's beautiful. Nobody told her to do that. What happened? She chose it for herself. And that's what, that's the value that she's placed on herself. She's bought the clothes, done the work, put the outfit on, walked down there and grown that confidence. Because really, honestly, we get the confidence taken out of us and we have to earn it. We have to decide our value. And a lot of motherhood and a lot of our life, and this is what I realize a lot is, like, I'm from New Zealand and I live in Australia and you're in America, and there is a lot of the same things, which is crazy and creepy in terms of what we feel about ourselves and what we feel about men and what we feel about our relationships and what we feel about pregnancy and motherhood and dating and our value and our confidence. And we're told that we need to measure up, that we need to seek something instead of sit and realize, hang on a second, I live in this body. What if I valued my body? What if, because at the end of the day, when you go to sleep, you like put your head on your pillow, what are you left with? Your thoughts. And that's when stuff sort of starts to crumble in. That's when we start to question my own thoughts. But I actually live here. I have to maintain this. This has got to be something I run. And that's the question with, the stuff to do with dating and relationships, because once we go through these experiences that sort of break us down, and then we have our body and all of that, like that whole big ball of stuff, it's so hard. And then when people label things or have an expectation and we don't have it within ourselves to sort of like fight back on that and be like, hey, I'm not okay with that. I actually saw a video just before about how hookup culture is not ideal for women and how we're actually not benefiting. And it's like being painted as though, we're going to get the benefits. And this lady, and I loved it. I was like, yes, what she just said. She's like, given the O gap, and given that the people that are, the men in this culture aren't valuing women, tell me again how we're benefiting when we hook up, because what it does to us energetically and how it messes with every part of our value. The average person is not really benefiting.
Okay, so I know this isn't our topic for today, but something you just said, I don't know that I would consider this. I guess, what do you consider hookup culture? I guess in my mind, when I think of hookup culture, I think of one night stands. But are you talking about any sort of sex outside of a relationship?
I
Because
think,
I will tell you, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Okay, so then,
middle stuff where like it's you touch just for now, if that makes sense.
so I had what I like to call, I mean, it's not my own term, but instead of a hookup, I call it an arrangement because I had a guy for just like 3 or 4 months. We had known each other before that for multiple months. But basically, we were both single. And so we just made an arrangement. And it was super nice because I got to lead it, which would not be something I'd want in an actual relationship, but it created safety for me in this situation because then I didn't have someone who was like calling me up, taking up my time, like I didn't want a relationship and I was focusing on my business and I was divorced. So I was taking care of my kids on the time that I had them and stuff like that. So the arrangement was just that when I wanted to, I would reach out to him and he always took me out to a restaurant first and we had great conversation. And I did enjoy the conversation with him and everything. And then we would always come back to my place because it was safe for me and whatever. And we usually talked for a while or watched a movie or something. So it was like a date, even though we both knew that we were going to be hooking up, I guess, by the end of the night. And then he would stay, hold me, cuddle, and leave in the morning. And I know some people are totally against that whole stay overnight cuddle thing because of the way that it increases your release of oxytocin, correct? I think it's oxytocin. And so that can make you feel more connected. But I didn't experience that with him. And I also know because I do teach a little bit about sacred sexuality, I know how to like prepare my energy before I go into it. And I know how to cut the cords afterwards and stuff like that. So I don't know. I felt totally fine with it.
Yeah.
But I can see how like going to a bar and just
Yeah.
randomly meeting someone and then hooking up, how that could be way less fulfilling. Especially like when you're talking about, you said the O gap. Well, for a lot of women, like the man needs to get to know their body.
Yeah.
They need to be able to openly communicate. They need to be able to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like I said with this guy that I made the arrangement with, we had already set a tone in the relationship that created that safety so that I could show up that way.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be able to do that with somebody from a bar, someone random. So I can see how that could be challenging. Okay, so some of the things you did mention, though, lead me back to today's topic. You want to hop into it? We were talking about, so I've been watching, I consume a lot of TikToks. I've noticed over the last few months, there's some pretty popular dating, relationship coaches, whatever you want to call them. And they've always been male. There's 3 that I have in mind. I'm not going to use their names because I'm not here to like slander them or anything like that. But I disagree with their viewpoint. And I want to bring it up because I'm afraid that other women might be in a more vulnerable situation or maybe just not have as much knowledge on the topic like I do since I coach around it to be able to see it's not the truth, and maybe they'll take it on themselves and I don't want them to. But basically what they're saying is that if you're looking for an alpha male, which is something a lot of us are told that we want this strong, assertive, leading alpha male, right? And so, but they're saying that alpha males don't want women over 30 and alpha males don't want women who have already had children. And their reasoning behind this is that an alpha male will take his 20s and maybe even his 30s, so he might be in his 40s, but he's going to take the decade or two to build his life, build himself, build his career, build his wealth and that sort of stuff. And then he's going to be ready for the family. So he's going to be looking for someone who is young and ready to start that family with him. And so he wants someone in their 20s, a woman in her 20s that's essentially clean. And we could take that as virginal, but it doesn't have to be virginal. I just mean like doesn't have these extra things going on like children that would be complications in their life. Um, and I don't necessarily think that's true, but I do want to preface before we get started talking on this for anyone watching that I'm not saying it's not okay for men to say I prefer women of a certain age or that I prefer to date someone who does or does not have children, because I think it's totally okay for anybody to have their preferences. What we're going to be discussing here today is this should not be a blanket statement. I don't believe it's the truth as a blanket statement that all alpha males are that. And so I don't know, do you have a place you want to get started with this, or you want me to throw out something? You seem like you're ready to talk.
Things like
Go ahead.
Well, the first thing is, like, if you do, like, when I first started looking, when I was struggling, it would have been like 2014 was when I just went, I'm not enjoying dating. And for me, I will just be like, is there like an education piece for this? And I just go and look for it, like ask questions, talk to people, figure things out. Like, because I'd gone on dates and I couldn't figure out what was going on. Anyway, what I discovered was, like, doing some of these courses, that I was a little bit disgusted because they had the same type of information that was like, you need to go out, you need to do more, you need to dress a certain way, you need to become a certain person, don't mention your age, don't talk about children, do not talk about your, basically who you are. Don't talk about that up front, which I think sets everybody up for disaster, because if you don't and you talk about the boring stuff, they don't know who you are. So how is that going to be successful? And then the piece that like kind of like breaks my brain is like, and this was when I was in, late 20s, I think. Anyway, let's not calculate. I started to be curious about like this age gap thing, and I've seen so much information. I'm like, yeah, about how, that piece where it's like, he's allowed to go and do this, but I'm not. Okay. Or don't say too much, or don't be too much. But when if he thinks you're okay and you decide you get along and then you want to start hanging out more, he's going to see I talk a lot. So how is it my benefit that I don't do that straight away? Not to overwhelm a person. How is it in my benefit that I don't even just admit that straight out front? Like, hey, I'm going to talk your ear off. I'll give you
You're
some.
going to love this advice that I saw the other day.
I'll give you some tools.
Because of what you do. First of all, I hate that there's so many rules out there. There's just not rules to dating, but I feel like I could go so many directions with this. Let me go back to the piece of advice that I saw. And so what she was saying was, it doesn't matter how flashy or eccentric you normally dress, you can't do that on the first few dates, because guys can't see past the flashy outfit, and then they won't want to be with you because it's too distracting, I guess. And I was like, well, maybe, but if he really doesn't like your clothing that much and he really can't see past the clothing to you, like, is it ever going to work? Is that the type of person you want to marry? Is that the type of person you want to raise a family with? Like,
or if he's social media, he's gonna see you're dressing in bright pink and bright yellows on the daily, and he's gonna be like, so who is this muted gray thing? Like, he's gonna be really confused, and this is, sets up so much disaster in terms of, the values like that. Like, we don't even know what each other is looking for, and if you're trying to manipulate it that way, and the whole thing, like, we're manipulated from the very beginning and conditioned to, what value we bring to the table, we don't, and then we're told we have to, like, don't text straight away and, wear certain clothes. Like, it sets everyone up for disaster. Like, no wonder so many people fail at, like, meeting and dating, and the fact that men are allowed to go and do this and we have to be quiet and little and petite, and, don't tell them that you've got a child. Don't tell them, like, in my circumstances, don't tell them that your family's not here. Don't tell them that you're actually a solo mum and you're just literally doing everything by yourself. Don't. Like, that's going to confuse somebody or intimidate them, or they're looking for structure or stability, which is a whole other conversation. But, you know, the age gap thing, and they're allowed to do that. And my cunt with it is that standard that we're fed, that we, you know, men are allowed to go and do this, and they're allowed to go for younger women who are more, you know, what you say, clean, that borders on, is this actually about, you know, that control of the virgin state, control of manipulation of who she is, because she's a clean slate, so he gets to
Mold
mess.
you. So what I always go back to when they say stuff like this, my feelings and my thoughts always go back to, they must be viewing you as property then. If they must still have, like, on some level, even if it's subconscious, they must be still viewing you as some sort of property if they're like trying to check stuff off instead of trying to connect with you. I mean, I know as feminine beings, we're connecting on an emotional level much more than men are. So I'm not trying to make them not masculine or anything, but if they're going to have a long-term loving relationship with you, they need to be able to connect soul to soul.
Yeah.
And not just be like, not just have their grocery list of physical attributes that don't have any depth to them.
Yeah.
Like, they need to be also looking for, and I'm talking about them, and I really want to actually, maybe I'll just pause myself there and bring it back to us, because I want this conversation to be for the women that are watching, you know? Something just totally slipped my mind there as I was saying that to you, because I was talking about, oh, I know what I wanted to go back to. You were talking about the age gap and stuff. And I guess what I wanted to share was, as a coach and a Pisces here, I am deeply spiritual. So I do talk about soulmate connections and meeting your soulmate and stuff like that. And one of the beliefs that I have, that I got from Dr. Brian Weiss, if you haven't read any of his books, they're great. He is a hypnotist, or he does hypnotherapy, maybe I should say, in Southern Miami. And so he's regressed a lot of people to learn through their past lifetimes and heal things in their current lifetime by learning all of that. And one of the things he says is that our souls are predestined to meet other souls at certain points in our life. And I truly believe that, especially after meeting a couple soulmates of mine, one that was romantic, and then one that's a best friend now. And they came in at like the perfect time. And so to me, this whole idea that you have to be younger than 30 to call in the type of person that you want, just because you're desiring someone who's alpha or more masculine, which maybe we need to have a little conversation around the difference between alpha and masculine, is just hogwash. Because if you've chosen on a soul level to meet at a predestined time and you're already over 30, then his soul knows he's going to meet you at over 30. So who the fuck really cares what your age is?
Pretty much. And you'll live in regret, because, you know, and this is what sort of blows my mind, that, like, if I've gone on a date with a guy, or I've seen him for a few months and it breaks up for whatever reason, he'll always come back to me and say, I deeply regret this. And it's not my place to be like, okay, cool, sit down, let's chat. Let's really talk about what's going on here. But so much of that is, you know, they weren't willing to jump at a certain point. You know, I was a lot of a person. I can be super extra, and they are under this assumption that they need to manage that they need to
control it,
have enough energy in the day to be around me. Dude, don't you worry. If I don't see you today, I will not die. And if I'm having an extra day and you can't handle it, it doesn't mean to say, you know, I'm not going to want to be with you, it means that I'm going to take my extra somewhere where I am applauded. And I'm confident and in control enough of that. Like if somebody says I talk too much, I'm very mindful about that I'm overloading their system, and I'm not going to, like, I'm not catering to them as such. And I'm not like, oh, I shouldn't talk so much around that person. It's more like a respect. And it's a disrespect to not, not hear them. And it's so fascinating when these come around, because they all come back around, which breaks my brain, because they were taught and followed at the time bad advice from other people. They were told, hey, she's not got the ideal life set up. You want something cushy and comfortable type of thing, or whatever is the thing. And it's absolutely fascinating that happens. It's absolutely fascinating, the stuff that we're told we should do or should be, and our value that we bring to that, and not really given the tools of, like, if I'm too much, how do we just find a communication model and a method and realize that we're both whole human beings that can manage who we are? Like, we got to this point, and age shouldn't be a thing. And oh my God, the age thing as well. Men lying about their age so they seem younger, but they're still going for even younger women. I've seen it so
Really?
many times, and I've seen people I've dated in the past on a dating app, and I'm friends with them because I've gone on a date and it didn't work out and we became friends, and I've gone, you're not 41. Why does your app say that? Or, certain things like that, because it's manipulation, and they're going for even younger women. They're going for a 28-year-old.
Is it manipulation or is it just insecurity on their part?
I think it's everything, because I've had the conversation with one and I've just gone, why are you 3 years younger than you really are? Why are you saying that you're 39? Like, their insecurity about their hair or their facial things. And, a lot of men will like try and cover up. They wear a hat, sunglasses, or like there's a group of 5 in the picture and you're like, which one are you? And it's really fascinating that they can do that and have that standard, but then, question the kinds of images that you're portraying, question who you are when you show up on the date and what you're wearing and how you present yourself. Man, we could talk about this for like the next 24 hours straight.
I feel like we should do an episode on dating profiles, because as you brought that up, I was like, pictures are really important. And I knew that going into it, but you don't always know how other people perceive your pictures. And I totally made this mistake myself. On a dating profile, I have this really cool picture where I'm like standing on a boat. We're out on the river boating. And I'm like in this hot pink swimsuit, super cute. And I'm just like bent over my knees. I don't know. Anyway, it's very bold. It's very confident, and it's a fun picture. Well, I didn't realize it, but guys were looking at that like, oh, she's a party girl. And I was like, oh no, I'm not your party girl. I'm not your let's go drinking on Saturday night girl. And I'm not the one that's going to stand up and do karaoke. Like, I am not that at all. But I mean, I was having fun that day on the river, but I was with a group of people that I knew, that I was comfortable with.
Yeah.
And we were drinking, but not heavily. So it is really interesting how important your photos are. I also think, nope. See, we could go any direction with these conversations. We're going to take us way, way off topic here. So I agree with the whole thing about how age should not stop you. It's okay if a man out there says he doesn't want to date someone your age. It just means he's not for you. But I guarantee it doesn't matter what your age is, there's someone for you. I will share, there's someone in my life, and she is 66 years old. And at 65, she finally met someone who she has just totally clicked with. So there's someone for you at every age. And if she had tried to meet this person in her 30s, like, it would have been impossible. First of all, he's younger than her, so he wouldn't have been the right person at that age. But also, she was married, and some of these things, like, back on a soul level, take time to work themselves out. You're working through your own thing. You're in your own relationship patterns. You're learning things. You're having these experiences your soul signed up for. And you're not ready for your soulmate until a certain point in time, and that's okay. So, yeah, I really don't think you should ever let age be something that's an issue. And I'm really happy that we're starting to see so many older women date younger men.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
it comes down to it. The average woman that you see that is going to be single and putting herself out there, the contradiction is she's so freaking valuable. She can manage her finances. She lives alone. She's, raising children. She's got a business or a job or multiple income streams. She's got a car or two. She's doing the main, she is running a whole life. And I have this conversation a lot with people because I'm two parents in one. And then there's just me, no grandparents or anything around us. And if you ask me the question, I don't know how to do it, I'm going to outsource it or Google it. And the value in that means if you actually date somebody who's more established, you have more time for yourself because you don't have to fix it, run it. You don't have to maintain it. She's going to bring value to the table.
The argument I hear a lot from men on that side is but an alpha man doesn't care if you have an established career or not, because they already have that going for themselves, so they're not looking for that in you. Yeah, but the thing about it is that when you have a woman that can learn how to do all of this stuff in a healthy way and be happy, you have someone who is emotionally mature.
Yeah.
You have someone who is capable of a long-term relationship. So yeah, maybe you're not getting into the relationship because she's going to provide for you because you're fine providing for yourself and for her. That's okay. But look at it on a deeper level, not just at the face value, because you've got someone, I just keep wanting to say emotionally mature over and over. But I think that's really important because how many people out there suffer from depression or anxiety and they can't figure out how to pull themselves out of it, and then it leaks out into the family?
Yeah.
I mean, how nice would it be to be with someone else that is capable of living a healthy life physically and emotionally?
They're not so young. This is not a dig at anybody, but when I was in my late 20s, I had no idea. And it wasn't because I hadn't been through necessarily anything less than now. I'm still the same person, but I look back now and I'm I had no idea. I didn't stand my own ground. And a lot of people in that position, they leave those relationships. Why? Because they were being manipulated or they didn't know who they were. But what you were saying before about the alpha male, and I think it's the alpha male with the healthy masculinity that doesn't care. It's the alpha males, self-probably labeled, with different type of masculinity, maybe, an unhealed, dealing with wounds, codependent, whatever is the thing. And I find those are the loudest, they're she's got to do this or I've got to do that or whatever. And they are the loudest. So there is a standard, I don't know if that's the expectation, or the most information that's available is that the alpha male is like that, domineering, demanding. Once a young person, he can.
Because they're still using force instead of power.
Yeah.
They're still, yeah. And so there's an immaturity to it, or an unhealed aspect to it. And I think that's why I wanted to talk today a little bit about the difference between what an alpha male is and what masculine energy is, because I think they're two different labels. They can overlap for sure. And we're going to have an open conversation around it, more like a contemplation of it, because it's not black and white. It's not totally defined. There's going to be other people that watch this and are no, I disagree with that. I would have defined it this way or whatever. And that's totally okay. But I always, when I'm working with clients, I always bring it back to masculine and feminine energy because I think it's so much healthier and so much more important. Plus, it brings the power back to the client I'm working with because all of us have masculine and feminine energy within us. So then
It is.
you can start to heal your own masculine and your own feminine, regardless of your physical gender.
Yeah.
And then you can start to call in other people that have those healthy levels of that. Because you can't be sitting here, like I can't be sitting here with an like a toxic sort of masculinity going on and then expect to call in this really healthy male that can lead the family. I'm not going to because I'm not vibrating at that level. And ways that you might see this, ways that I've seen it for myself, let's say, um, is like, so a healthy masculine knows how to lead and they know how to respond versus react. So a way that I practice this a ton is with my children. How much can I lead them without controlling them?
Yeah.
How much can I show them things and give them healthy boundaries and hold them without making them do what I want, without forcing them to do something or be someone? And then also when things are hard, if we're fighting about getting ready for dance class or if they get in trouble at school or whatever the thing is, like, can I control my own emotions enough to respond in the situation? Or am I reacting from past patterns? Am I screaming? Am I blowing up? Those sort of things. And don't get me wrong, like I still have those issues from time to time. But another thing that makes that a more mature energy is I recognize it. I'm
Yes.
able to step back and self reflect. So even if I have a moment where I don't hold a healthy masculine energy for my children, I know enough to reflect, go through and do the processes to heal it and fix those patterns, and also how to go back and apologize.
Yeah. Yes. They remember the apologies. What I thought I might clarify is, well, I'm a visual person, so
Okay.
that's why I do styling and stuff. And the way I picture masculine and feminine energy is the masculine is structure, straight lines. He or she. The masculine energy is the container. All the way I always explain this to my clients. So even, girlfriends who are like crying, saying, "Oh my God, this happened." I bring it back to like the essence of, what that person is standing in or not standing in. And I find the way I describe it and visualize it and picture it and help people step through is the masculine energy is like the bookshelf. So the container, it's the structure, it's standing, it's solid. I imagine it's wood. Mine's painted white and it's beautiful. And feminine, for them to
Mhm.
go together, the feminine is the love that fills the bookshelf. And since the minute that like this was something that I could verbalize, I haven't been able to step away from imagining this is exactly it. The feminine energy changes so much, whereas the masculine enjoys the structure. He doesn't want to change the shelves. He is not interested. But the feminine's like, today we need flowers. And then tomorrow we need some glitter. And so she's, willing to change it and he's willing to hold it. And what that can look like in like a conversation between two people, a married couple I know, they were having a lot of stress and they went for a walk and she was trying to help get information out of him because she was like, okay, we need to move through this. We've got 5 children. We've got stuff we need to work through. And they were out on the farm taking a walk and she's like, but Hayley, he wasn't responding. And I was like, okay, well, let's walk this back to the masculine and the feminine energy. You were like a lot was coming out, and that looks like the love on the bookshelf. And did he walk away? She's like, oh no. I was like, so did he stand there? She's like, yes. And I was like, so he was being the bookshelf. He was standing there. He was present. He wasn't necessarily able to be all the stuff on the shelf because that's what you were bringing to it. But the fact that he stood there, no matter what you were saying, and he was waiting. And he was, even if he said nothing for the next 3 days, but he still showed up, that's the bookshelf. We don't expect any performance from the bookshelf. This is another conversation about performance, but that's the way I picture it. And she was like, oh my God. And I was like, so every conversation that you feel like you've struggled with him, Are you wanting him to come at you as though he's the flowers and the love and any books or, whatever decor on the bookshelf? Or is he able to stand there as a solid structure and hold you? And that's like why I always come back to the container. Was he just holding the conversation? You were having an absolute meltdown, but he was energetically present and he was there and he was holding you. You weren't falling, you weren't going anywhere. He was definitely hearing everything you've got to say. But the way his brain works is he may actually need time to contemplate because he's going to bring back logic. And you've brought all of your emotions and all of your love to this. And she was like, oh my God, he's amazing. Like thinking about it from that strong, structured holding point of view. And then she's like, I am the love. I was like, and love looks different. Like love is not, the romantic love we're sold. Love is not the beautiful stuff that we're sold and we're told. Love can be, I'm taking a stand for you, and this is not okay. This is really like, the stuff that was going on with the children, the stuff that was going on with their finances. And she was willing to, energize that and process that and put that out in ways that he can't. And so, them coming together is the bookshelf, and she's the flowers and glitter and so much love on that bookshelf. And she was able to walk away and go, I'm just going to go hug him now, and I'm going to come back to this conversation. And I find a lot of people, when you can picture or feel into that, like, what is the masculine energy? Like, what is a healthy masculine? And that is a container. For me, it's a container. It's a holding thing. It's not necessarily a doing thing. And for the feminine, it's a lot sometimes. It's emotions, it's energy, it's flow. It makes no sense. We might be on 5 different bookshelves on one go.
Yeah.
Because there's stuff to do.
I think something that I learned along in my journey that was really helpful, and this kind of goes against, I guess, what you were saying, because you said you don't really see it as the doing, which I understand in your analogy, the structure and the holding of it. But like when you're having challenges like that, and he's not saying anything, is that masculine energy does like to fix things, does like to solve the problem. So what I have learned is to watch for the action.
Like when you're like verbalizing it and emotionalizing it, he may not fix it in the moment, but realizing that's what he's bringing to the table. That's the masculine in the moment. And then later on, he may be like, right, let's get our bank accounts out. Or right, we're going to do this. Because you've both been at this together, 2 pieces coming at it. So he can later on be the doing. Definitely.
Absolutely, because you don't want him to be the doing in the moment. You want him to be the container, like you're talking about. Because if you were in that moment and you're all disorganized and you're all emotional and he's like, well, then let's sit down and do the finances. Or, well, then let's do this. Then you're like not feeling heard. Yeah. You're not feeling seen and you're not being able to express stuff. Things are getting stifled. So yeah, it's very healthy. But then to pay attention, like afterwards in the next few days, the next few weeks or whatever, like what does he do? Because there's a good chance he's not going to come back and say something to you, because in the masculine, we like to process things and then take action. So he's probably, especially as a man, they typically like to process their emotions themselves in private. So he'll probably be like working or driving or whatever, and everything will be processing up here in his masculine logical energy. Then he'll be like, okay, and this is our plan of action. And then he'll just go take his action. So that's like almost where I was going to say where the apology is, but he's not necessarily apologizing. But that's where he's correcting what's going on. The man that you should be afraid of is either the one that's like overreacting in the moment and can't hold space for you.
Yeah.
Or the one that's taking absolutely no action. The one that's sitting there and saying, okay, yeah, I get it. I understand. Yes, I'm so sorry. And then there's absolutely no change in action.
Yeah.
I think as women, though, we if we don't take time to stop and think about it, we want the man to show up in the same way we do, because we just don't realize it. We think, well, I'm expressing my emotions, so in order for me to know how he's feeling, he needs to express his feelings. But he doesn't. No. If you watch him, he will show you what he's thinking. and what he's feeling.
Yeah. And
And
for me,
and honor him. And so he gets to stay masculine and you get to stay feminine. And
yeah. And men don't realize, or what I've learned is to help fix it, sometimes you just need to like hug her and it just fixes everything, because that's the container and she's just floating and she's just like in 1,000 pieces, and that just, the emotions don't go anywhere, but it's just that solid structure. And I've had this conversation with a lot, and this is how I discovered one of my exes in a conversation where, you know, because I'm not confrontational, so for me to respond to stuff as like, I'll normally, you know, contemplate it. And I think it's because I do a lot of masculine stuff in my life, so I have to not overflow, because I've got to be the structure for my daughter and, you know, provide that stability and not be too much, because then there is no management. When a man has expected that from me in the past, my last relationship, and I've had the conversation with him openly. I was like, if you prod me too much and if I overflow and I'm too much, you just need to put your arms around me and it will fix everything. Like, it just means that it got too much and you prodded the bear way too much, because that means it's like next level meltdown, and that, you know, fixes everything. And then you come at it from that place, and afterwards, well, you can respect each other, what you bring to these conversations or these situations, and you see, yeah, they're not responding the way I am. They're not, like, you know, her husband wasn't like spewing out how he was feeling, and she was taking that as, he doesn't freaking care, he's not understanding, he's not knowing what's going on with, you know, child number 2 or what have you. And that was how she was feeling, and that she was so upset to me. And I was like, he would have, but he's doing it his way, you know. And that's what can create, and this is what I think is sort of missing from the average dating and like beginning of relationship, like creating that balance, and like, you know, looking for that alpha, and how women can be a bit of an alpha, and then trying to go on a date and trying to go with all these rules that would talk what we can and what we can't do, right? And we end up, this is so bad, you can end up, if you don't necessarily know these dynamics and the health underlying of them, you will, by default, if you're used to chaos, go with the unhealed, soon to be healed, hopefully masculine, who responds emotionally the way you were just behaving. Like, they match you, which seems like a match. And I know that makes so much sense in our brain and our heart, and that's what we're told. We're like, he's not talking back to me, he's not sharing his emotions, and so, you know, he's not on the same page as me and we can't be together. Or, you know, guys are like, she just won't stop. She is just always talking and always doing stuff, and it's just a lot, and I can't just be. Why can't she just be? And, you know, then they think that that's not working, and then they, you know, want to go out and date somebody or what have you, and then they want to like match that in a the basic, you know, relationship, the heterosexual, male, female, masculine, feminine, they're two different things, but we're told we need to go for like our best friend. It's not always the truth, right? Like, you know, that's not. We're told go for, you know, 2 alphas should go for each other. Oh my God, I don't even know about that. Like, if you really think about it, like if we really talked about how chaos that would be, and how much, in my mind, how much structure would need to be around to like hold and manage that, or 2 people who are a lot more submissive and quiet and introverted, and they're a lot less intensity, who's going to speak up, right? And there needs to be that balance. It's almost like, you know, the parent-child relationship. You can't both scream at each other and get somewhere, and you can't both be in, you know, your rooms with the door closed and get somewhere. And the parent-child relationship works best when there is 2 things to it. And this is, you know, as you know, when we are present with our children and we ask for feedback and they give it to us and we listen, that's when the magic happens, because it's two different things. You're listening and talking, or the other way around. And that's what we want from them. We don't want them to be talking when we're talking, but we're told and taught, and it's publicized, that we should go for our best friend for a romantic relationship, that we go for the same type of thing. We go for the same sexual preferences. We go for the same structural way that we run our lives. We, the two alphas or the two betas or the two whatevers. I kind of don't think that works out sustainably. And you wrote a post the other day about karmic relationships and soulmates, and you were talking about how a karmic relationship often will last 6 months to 2 years-ish. And that's what I think kind of happens with that. I'm not saying it's karmic or soulmate. That can be a whole other conversation. Gosh, we're complex. But if you're not aware of these things, and if you're dealing with unhealed parts of yourself, so unhealed as in it's not a conscious thought you've had come to the surface and you've looked at it, you could assume easily without trying, and it's nobody's fault, because you haven't necessarily had a container like you and I have where we can say stuff and we just hold the space. And if you've not got relationships like that in your life where you can just let it spill out and the other person holds the space, or gives you feedback if that's what you need, and you get it out of you, you could easily just go for my best friend, same sexual preferences, same type of lifestyle. We're both really fit. We're both got 2 children. We've both got whatever it is. But that's not necessarily the match. I don't even know how to verbalize that part. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I think you're verbalizing it. I do want to go backwards though, because there is a belief that if you want an alpha, then you should be a beta, or if you want a beta, then you need to be the alpha, and kind of pull it together. But I do think there is space for both of you to pull in a healthy alpha energy. It's just that the way I visualize it in my ideal relationship is I usually don't use the term alpha. I usually say a healthy masculine.
Yeah.
But it would incorporate some of those alpha things. And I want him to enjoy being in his masculine so much that he's willing to be in his masculine at both work and at home. And when I say at home, I guess I mean in our romantic relationship. Not that there will never be space for him to be in his feminine, because obviously he's going to want to play, hopefully, with the children, and with me and stuff like that. But what I want to be able to do is use that great alpha, healthy masculine energy in my business, and then be able to come home and be in my feminine.
Yeah.
And so the closest term I've seen for this actually comes from BDSM, and it's alpha submissive. So it's like someone who's alpha, but when they meet the right person, they're willing to be in the role of submissive, which would be essentially, I'm in a healthy masculine energy as often as I want to be, but in my relationship, I'm choosing to hold the feminine pull for the polarity to happen.
And we saw that, right? When that program that we did together in 2016, how we met, we saw that when the coach went on stage and her husband came out. We saw her, and she discussed it. So this was part of the program that we did. We saw her go from being this powerhouse to the minute her love was there, she was like, okay, baby. And it was and because it was, I get chills, because it was part of the program and part of the structure that we were learning. And we got to, she didn't try in that moment. That was just their relationship, because they had put everything on the table. They had gone and seen people, and they'd done a lot of healing, and they understood masculine and feminine. They respected that in each other, and they understood what was healed and what they were working on. They understood where they weren't, where they were blind, and how to be respectful. And the minute that she saw him and responded and melted and went from being, shoulders back, being that dominant power super pose, to when she saw her love and she melted and she was okay, my love. And it, because it wasn't purposeful, and she talked about it, and then we saw it, and we were just like, oh my God, this is beautiful. because there was no disrespect. There was no sleepiness in terms of understanding who they are and their, masculine and feminine counterparts, and the fact that she could be so powerful and still be powerful in his presence. And there was no, like, I visualize it like a domineering energy over each other. It wasn't like he demanded her attention, she hadn't demanded his attention, and it wasn't like one went over the other, but you could tell there was trust and there was health there, and she was able to surrender, and it looked so good on her. And he stepped into that role because it was a thing that they had consciously chosen and worked on. And he stood there and he just loved the melt. And it was like oh my God, this is beautiful. And not a lot of people talk about that because, she is definitely an alpha female. There is no doubt about it. I was listening to one of her books this week and I was like, get it? Oh my God, I love this. And I love, that we're able to have these conversations and we're able to share with other people. We have these platforms that we can say this, right? We can share our own experiences and our own teachings and learnings. And then just as she had shared with us and we got to witness even just that one moment on stage, then we can help other people see that too and know that's okay.
Yeah.
I still love that moment. It's still one of my favorites.
Well, I wanted to come back around to our initial conversation around this idea that alpha males don't want someone over 30, which I think we addressed and at least shared some stuff for everyone to think about and contemplate for themselves. I don't know that we said as much about already having children or anything, but I think the thing that I really want to make sure that anybody watching leaves with is when you're consuming this dating and relationship advice, like always bring it back through your own filter and always bring it back through your own intuition. Because if you just took this advice on, you're like really giving your power away and you're letting someone else tell you what's okay to desire and where you need to settle. Because if you're over 30 and then you take on this advice, then you basically have to settle. You have to say, oh, I have to get something other than what I want. And instead of looking out at the world, one of my least favorite things that I see in the dating community when I'm talking to other coaches, because I'm in some Facebook groups where us coaches connect, is where people will get so frustrated because women will come in and say, I only want to date people who are over 6 feet, men who are over 6 feet, right? And then they will say, well, if you look at the population, only this many men are over, and so you've already, and it's like, love isn't about statistics. You are only looking for one person in the entire world, and you get to desire what you want to desire. And so instead of looking at what's available to you and picking from that, connect with yourself first and figure out what it is you actually desire, and then create that in the world. Call it in from the world. And I think the best analogy I ever heard anyone use was a guy that was a coach. And he said, yeah, we always teach our clients that we're going to teach you how to become the magnet so that you can pull the needle out of the haystack. You don't have to fear the haystack. That's the world of all these different things. It's okay to just find that one needle. We're going to teach you how to be that magnet. And I think that's perfect. And that's exactly what I work on with my clients is like, let's get clear on what you actually desire. Because just taking this back to law of attraction, like God will not give you a desire that cannot be fulfilled. At least that's what I believe, right? So if there's this man out there that you desire, he's available.
Yeah, he's already alive.
What you're doing is you're going to start doing the work to come into vibrational alignment with him. And if something you think you desire is not a true core desire, you're going to figure that out in the process. You're going to let it go. So like if someone started working with me, just because they lay out this list of who they desire week 1 doesn't mean that that list is the same at week 12 or week 20 or whatever. Like it's allowed to evolve. You're feminine. It's a process. You're human. Like each step you take gives you more clarity and gives you more knowledge.
I do find I think coming back to that piece that we could talk about so much about it, like the value for women when they're over 30 and have children and they have a life, and that we're taught that we have less value. For me, my experience, and every woman I've talked to, when we have this conversation, we feel our most valuable in our 30s. Once we've had children, once we understand our power, once we, that moment when you look in the mirror after having your children and you look at your body and you're just saying, wow, did we do that? And then you look at your child and you're saying, I did that. I made that. I made that hands-free. That cute button nose, that really sassy smile. Like, I did that. That was me. Hang on. So, wait a second. The information is that I'm less valuable. And I feel like the men that I have talked to that I've moved through this piece value women who value themselves.
Yes.
And I feel bad saying it, but it's like the men who are asleep, who aren't paying attention, they will downgrade you. They will devalue you. They will, the unhealed parts of them are going to say toxic things or expect toxic things from you. And in reality, we need to learn to walk away from that and not feel, because like you said, there's one person. That's cool. There's multiple people around. We're allowed to say no to that. We don't need to be in situationships. We don't need to be seeing that guy. Oh my gosh, I think about a friend. She was dating a younger guy and he kept playing her against these other people on Instagram of all things. And she's like, we went out for a drink. She's like, I know I should stop. And she's like, and I can't. And I was like, well, this is about something that we need to decide for our values for ourselves. You're a powerhouse of a woman. I remember meeting you and I remember thinking, your friend goals. I would love to be your friend. And then when I saw this beautiful tattoo she had on her back, I was like, can we really be friends though? Because you're my people. There is like that symbology behind that. And it's so interesting that on this other side of it, she's walked away, blocked all the stuff. And she said to me, I think it was last week, I cannot believe. It's like, it's okay, honey, because we're told externally, when you look at marketing, advertising, freaking style and fashion industry is the worst. Oh my goodness. Of what is valuable, clear skin, no stretch marks, the face has to be perfect. You have to have perky breasts, like all these things that don't necessarily exist if you've had children in your 30s or more, or 30s, 40s, 50s, every age past 30. You don't necessarily have those. And when you were younger, you didn't even value it. And that's like, the valued population. But I do find the men who have, and I think you will agree, the men who have done a bit of the work, they've noticed this, they've noticed the expectation, they've had the conversations, they do value that a woman in her 30s and plus can actually handle herself. And he's free. He's like, I can go away for a boys' weekend and have fun. Full stop. That's it. Like, I can just have fun. All the other girls I've ever dated, this never happened with. And the question that popped out of me would be like, how old were they though? What were they told? You're expecting somebody with less life experience and only showing toxic masculinity and marketing and social media and all the things that are wrong with us to trust you? Like, no, they have to learn their value. That's what we do. It's not okay, but we have to learn our value. And we learn that when we step into our 30s and 40s, when we've had our children, when we've had to buy a house, when we've had to deal with a car accident by ourselves, when we've had to, handle a child screaming in the mall for 40 minutes because of those shoes. Whatever is the thing, you step on the other side of that and you can handle and manage anything. And like the men who go for the younger girls, not one of them I've spoken to is completely satisfied. So they're buying into the story too and going, well, this is what I wanted, but really I should have gone for somebody else. And I said no, because everybody around me told me that, I should go for somebody who's going to build a life with me, not somebody who's already got one.
Yeah. So something to reflect there is that we need to be building our own self-worth and knowing our worth instead of looking for someone to tell us what our worth is.
Yeah.
And tell us what we deserve. We need to be stepping into our own power and recognizing that. But also you brought up age a few times there too. And I think the important thing is like sometimes there is someone in their 20s that is like emotionally mature and ahead of the typical scale. And so again, this is why it's so important to start looking at like what's underneath your desires. If you say you want to date a man in his 40s, like what is behind that? What does a man in the 40s represent for you? Because what you might really be looking for is emotional maturity or financial stability or whatever. And then when you get clear on that, you can allow it to come in anywhere, even if the person is 35 years old or 28 years old or whatever it is. Because now you know what the core desire is and you can allow it to come in, which is one of the things I walk women through when they say things like, I want someone over 6 foot. Okay, well, why is that important to you? It's not that you can't choose someone over 6 foot. Like if that's just a desire you have, okay. But if you're like, well, I want him over 6 foot because it makes me feel safe. Okay, well, let's look into that then.
Yeah.
What makes you feel safe, And
wonder
you start to create safety yourself and things like that, you can say what you need to say, but we got to wrap up.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see the time? I told you wouldn't be able to shut up.
No.
You can finish what you were saying.
I just wonder about things like where that 6 foot came in. Like from my experience, when you trace back something that in reality doesn't make sense, it was not like a marketing campaign somewhere. Somebody started something. I'm not saying this was, but I feel like there's like a high chance, over 50% chance. But we define our value, because any time a woman values herself, it doesn't matter how old she is, what circumstances she's got, how many children she's got, anything. A man is going to love that. He is. Every single man who recognizes value, a man who's worthy of a really healthy relationship, a person who's ready, available, has done work on themselves, because that's what we're all after these days. Like the amount of women who are doing work on themselves and who would listen to something like this has done work. And she should be applauded and rewarded. And go for a guy who's the same level. And he will value the work that you've done. He wants that. And anything else, and I think but it's true though, anything else, it's a no. It's a hard no. Anybody who's like, well, I want somebody who doesn't have children. Okay, bye. Anybody who doesn't like your body shape. Bye. Like there's so many people. And if you're only wanting one, it's almost like finding the ideal pair of shoes. Just keep buying shoes, keep trying them on. Like nobody said you can't. I didn't say try on men. I said try on shoes.
You kind of do have to try on a few men though, just to figure out the fit.
And I think it's because we're told the narrative of who we need to be in order to have the thing we want. Like we need to, meet a man, get a house, build a family. Somebody that I know very, very, very dear to me, that I talk to every day, and I've known her entire life. She's a little bit younger than me. She got to a point in her life where she went and did everything that she was told she should have, and she was epically miserable. And because I'm a safe space, she came to me and she was like, I don't understand why. I have everything, and I couldn't imagine being more miserable. And I don't know what to do. Man, children, house, 2 dogs, cat, brand new car, $250 sneakers she wanted, anything she wanted. And her husband, because I know him, beautiful person, would walk on water for her, would do anything. He's actually such a beautiful soul. And so there wasn't like anything toxic in their relationship. There was nothing like that. She had everything and the support and family and everything. And she's like, so what's wrong with me? And I was like, honey, this is when you need to pick your values. I'm not saying get rid of any of this stuff. These are all cool things. Keep them, do whatever you want with them. But you're gonna have to, and this is what that is. Like, that was her stepping into her 30s. What do you want? Who are you? What do you value? And if we go based on what we're told we should have, we don't want it. Like, somebody might say, hey, this is, the dinner special, you need to have it. And if it's lamb and I don't like lamb, I'm not gonna like it. And it's the same thing. And people, like, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people. I had the conversation with my own stepdad. He's like, you need to get a man, a house, and provide some stability. And I was like, okay. Looking at my really happy daughter, and I just walked out of a really toxic relationship. And I was like, does she look unhappy? Does she look unstable? Do you really think picking a man because he's stability is going to be the healthiest choice after leaving a toxic relationship? Do you really think buying a house is going to provide the emotional stability that I need? Like you said before, it's the emotional piece. And this is what relationships are. Like, we be intimate with somebody because it's an emotional thing. Physical stuff's another conversation. But we want the physical thing because it provides the emotional, biochemical, neurological stimulation. That's why we want it, because it feeds that drive at the core of who we are. And I find it so fascinating. We're told that those things are going to provide what we want. What do we want? We want to feel loved and cherished and safe. Then we'll, and also happy. Happy is like top of the top. And then everything else after that. And I feel like these are the important things that, we love talking about. And I know conversations that you and I have that I then go and talk with other girlfriends about the topics that we've discussed. And I just go, yeah. And my girlfriends are like, yeah. Like, we need to shout this from the rooftops. Because the more people are genuinely happy, and this is what makes me so happy, the more, if you have a great day as a woman who's running her house, going to her job, running her business, whatever you do as a woman, everybody around you is happier. Yeah. And they know it. They feel when you are happy. They know. We see a woman in a relationship when we know she's happy or not. And we want that or we don't. And we're happy for her because we're like, I want that. And we can tell you're genuinely happy. And it's not necessarily based on her outfit. And it's not necessarily based on anything he's doing. It's she's feeling it because she's the powerhouse in most relationship situations. And when you have come from that place, and this is what we think is important, in terms of being in your 30s, 40s plus, having children, having a life, and feeling like less value because you're not deemed as the ideal mate, they can F off. We deem our value. We know the power of having an incredible day. When you put on your favorite lingerie and you wear that underneath your clothes all day and you have that smile to yourself, you're like, I got it. Or, you go to the bathroom, you're like, oh, that's right. I like these. And you leave and you're like happy. And somebody's like, that smile looks really good on you. And it's because you valued yourself enough to buy the lingerie, put it on, and satisfy yourself that day. And from that point, you probably get asked out if you were single because you were glowing. And it's because you valued yourself. And I think that's, what we want for everybody, right? That's what we want for ourselves. And it's what we're friends, is that value. And who values that? Like, if you have a business, you have to value your products or service to create them, put prices on them, and to put them in front of people. Anybody, like a man, oh my gosh, I adore the way men value themselves. I do. Like, I just watch in complete adoration of, he values that. Teach me how. And if in a situation where I can ask, I'm like, tell me how you got to that point. They don't necessarily know how to verbalize it like we do, but I'll listen to anything he's got to say because his insights are fascinating. If you ask, when you look in the mirror, what do you see? Tell me what you value. And listening to a man and you just go, oh my God, me too. You look good. Like, they can help us step into those value pieces. Like, we're in this together. Men and women are in this together. We're not against men who want to go for younger girls or any of that stuff. We're actually in this together. And I find it fascinating. And I just love hearing how a man values himself and what a man thinks of when a woman doesn't value herself, or, a healthy masculine when you, in our positions, in our ages, with our life situations, when you talk to a man who is your friend or a colleague and you hear what they say about what they value about you. Like in the past, I've had bosses just go, you are so valuable. You're bored, aren't you? Like, you can do this, eyes closed and more, right? And I'm like, how can you tell? And I wasn't valuing myself enough at that point. And a man pointed it out. And, it was two directors. They were both healthy masculine. And I listened from that point. And, I was able to get more authority and make more decisions and actually get really super busy and do a lot more of the creative stuff that I like. And so I think we're in this together, which we forgot to mention at the beginning. This is not a bag on men at all. We both love and adore men and find a lot of teachings. Like some of the teachers that we love, David Data, that's a man. I literally have his book right here, not purposefully, but because it just happens to be here. And I reference it a lot. And there's so many things that come back to that. When I was doing like a lot of this research, I specifically went and downloaded and bought and did courses that were aimed at men, because I was like, well, what are you being told? How come my courses are so floppy? What are you guys being told? When it was like, I can't even think. It was like pick up lines.
Yeah, how to get a woman in bed.
Yeah, all of those things. I went and did those. And like, what's that man one? Oh, that is not the best description. It was The Superior Man. The Way of the Superior Man? The Man. That
That's a good book. Are you looking for a good book, or are you looking for the one that I told you a long time ago to read that was terrible?
It was the good one with the black and orange cover. Anyway,
it's The Way of the Superior Man.
Yeah, and it's that in that we learn to not just be on our own team, but on both teams. And that's when, when I really started to realize reading men's books and what men are told and realizing where they're coming from, because, anything that's catered to a man who's like dating and relationship stuff, it's going to talk about their insecurities. It's going to talk about their perspective and their view. And because I just want to understand stuff. We both do. This is why we have our conversations. We're like, I just want to understand. And I found I got so much respect out of it. And I did a couple of courses that was Keys to the Kingdom, and a couple of other ones where it was like men and women having these important conversations and, talking about like taking out the trash and, all of those types of things, and really, really realizing that we only limit ourselves because we value or we don't value. And we buy into somebody else's story or marketing or theme that's in their life. Like, the person I was talking about before, she was told to do all these things. So she went out, got married, had the kids, did all the stuff. Like literally the perfect life. Like I didn't want what she wanted, but I'd take it because, okay, she's got everything. Like she could just go shopping. Okay, I'll take that. But, she didn't do from her heart. She didn't do from her value space. And now that she has, she's started a business. She's quit her jobs. She's rearranged her friendships and her values. Her marriage, they had time apart, I think 3 times, and got back together. And they are so solid because they did the work and they came at this from value, from self-value, and then valuing together and having really important conversations and definitions of things.
Well, thank you. I think I'm just gonna cut you off right there. Um, yeah, and so we hope that you found value in this conversation today. Please feel free to comment whenever you see this video and share with us parts that you really enjoyed that resonated with you, or anything maybe we brought up that you would like in a future episode for us to dive into deeper and explore more, because we'll be back every week for a new conversation. So thank you for joining us, and we'll sign off for now.